good afternoon, and welcome to this third in our Future of Research series. This afternoon's session, Maximising Sales in Uncertain Times. It will be looking in particular at the topic of customer footfall, and of course that's something of particular relevance as people are beginning to return to shopping in bricks and mortar environments. People are starting to go back to their office environments. I'm actually in our offices this afternoon, and during today's session we're going to be thinking about how, in these uncertain times that we're living in, retailers can maximize opportunity in terms of conversion to purchase, in terms of size of basket, all those key metrics that we're looking at and thinking about as we return to, if not normality, something that is a little different to what we've been living through for the last 6 months. And to help us in our session today, we are absolutely delighted to be joined by Adam Moore and by Richard Braybrook from Watches of Switzerland, who will be talking to us about how their organisation has navigated its way through the last few months and is navigating its way through the changes we're seeing now. Our session this afternoon is due to run for about 45 minutes. There'll be half an hour or so of content from our speakers, and then there'll be plenty of time at the end for questions and answers. So please, if you've got questions right the way through the session, please put those into the questions box, and I'll come back and pick those up and put them to our speakers at the end of the session. But that's quite enough from me. Here are our guest speakers, Richard and Adam. We'll be hearing more from them later. You'll also be hearing from two of my colleagues this afternoon, from Rosie and, in the first instance, from Delly Carter, who I'm going to hand over to now. So Delly, over to you.
Lovely, thank you, Paul. So to set the scene, we all know that in the past 5 or 6 months, it's had a huge impact on the retail environment, and in particular the shopping experience and how this has impacted customer behaviour. So lockdown meant that bricks and mortar stores were closed, and then following that we've gone into recession, meaning that people have got less money to spend and they're really making fewer impulse purchases while they are out shopping. On top of that, when you think about the health and safety factor of shoppers wanting to feel safe and having to wear masks, all of these factors have had a really significant impact on the footfall that retailers are seeing at the moment. So these figures from August show the impact that this has really had on the UK's footfall, with huge drops when comparing to last year's numbers. So I don't think we've got the numbers on screen, but in August we were minus 41% down year on year. However, there is positive. So the positive is that we are seeing footfall increase with each month that passes. So while we are still 41% down at the moment, in June figures were down 65%. So we are definitely moving in the right direction. The other good news is that the conversion rates have definitely increased. So in June, July and August, we saw an increase in conversion rates in over 70% of stores, which is really good news. So we can see a shift in the customer behaviour. People aren't necessarily going shopping for browsing, but they are shopping with purpose. So it doesn't mean that the customers walking for a retailer's door aren't spending money. They're more likely to spend, and conversion rates we've really seen have increased by a minimum of sort of 5 points in the past 3 months, which is really good news. So although footfall traffic is down and these are uncertain times, there's definitely more opportunity to convert those that are shopping and are coming into your store. Spending is also down, and we will expect this to continue as furlough comes to an end in October and also redundancies continue to increase. But things like the government scheme to Eat Out to Help Out, also the reduced tax, will be helping people, but they really will need to be encouraged to spend their money. So to really maximise on sales opportunities, retailers need to be thinking outside the box to be able to give their customers an experience to really draw them into spending with them. Safety is also, as we mentioned, a really important factor. So these figures were taken in June, but they really show the key issues with regards to how people were feeling then and also will continue to feel. So 62% commented that they were not comfortable using public toilets, and 60% not happy using public transport. So really this is limiting the travel that's coming into the shopping areas, as well as the amount of time that people are going to be spending when they're there. On the other hand, we do have the consumers that are desperate to get out of the house and try and return to some normality. So retailers really need to be ensuring that the customers that are coming through their door really feel safe when they are visiting. And now I'm going to hand over to Rosie, who's going to discuss that further. Okay, so as we've already said, no one would have known this long ago that health and safety aspects of the in-store journey would have become one, if not the most important aspect of the customer experience. So what lockdown has done is really profoundly changed the way that consumers are shopping and has hit the fast forward on the move to the digital environment. So to get shoppers back to the bricks and mortar stores, retailers really need to ensure that their health and safety aspects are really high on their agenda. We set out to identify where this was being delivered well and where it wasn't on the high streets. So in our health and safety index, which was conducted in July, over a third of shoppers said that they would stop shopping at a retailer if they didn't appear to be taking health and safety seriously while in store. And this was even higher for those shoppers that were over 55 years of age. Perhaps due to more people being in that age bracket, they're obviously affected by the shielding rules and also those with caring responsibilities. So here we see that 45% of shoppers that went into certain clothes stores said that where the health and safety wasn't being conducted, they did not feel safe and they wouldn't go back. So it is worth noting that our visits did take place before face coverings became mandatory. So our findings may well show that a higher percentage now as a result of these new rules. Okay, so the next slide shows that the visible health and safety protocols have become so much more important, and delivering them well will help build trust in consumers to return. So when that happens, the impact is hugely positive. And in our research, 88% of the shoppers who visited those top performing retailers that did feel safe said that they would return when the health and safety protocols were followed. So that's really important to make sure them health and safety options are there. So this shows the ideal state. So this is really talking about how retailers try to regain their sales opportunities that they had had before when footfall had fallen so starkly and there are barriers to consumers returning. So if you click, I think we see the opportunities go through the funnel. So first of all, we have to look at this ideal state for the face-to-face retail journey. When opportunities exist and the opportunities are really flowing through the customer journey effectively, then you can improve your purchase conversion rates. When resources are aligned and everything is measured, customers can really flow through that journey easily. And this starts at the front door with quantifying how many customers are really coming into your shop, what they're spending in store and for how long. Also, how staff are then interacting with customers and delivering those brand promises, whether the POS is visible, is the stock available. In the ideal state, if there's an issue somewhere, it can easily be identified and addressed to make sure that you're maximising every opportunity. However, in the next slide, we see the reality state. So the reality is that standards at each stage of the customer journey will vary, and there's movement between the customer journey elements. So this means that only one aspect may be great, but it only takes one of those to fail, and that sales opportunity may be lost. So the opportunity may walk away for whatever reason, and so if they do, that's resource and expense from the retailer's part that's completely wasted, which in turn then means you've got your lower conversion rates and less sales. If you want to click, so we see how those opportunities could bounce off, and if you're not measuring, you don't know where potentially that opportunity is being lost. So on the next slide, we see that on top of this, we also see the impact of retailers not having the measurement in place, and they're effectively running blind. Without that measurement system across these journey touch points, the chances of success really reduce as a result. So being able to easily identify where a fix is needed to become limited becomes limited, and resolutions tend to be based on chance of picking the right thing to focus on, or maybe historical experience rather than actually knowing the facts. So the impact of the change to the left is left to a high degree of chance as you're adjusting an invisible area that isn't being measured or effectively managed. So in the next slide, we see what the key steps really are. So what retailers really need to ensure now more than ever, as opportunities are less, is to create visibility of the channel's performance across all areas and put in measurement for these. The next box shows us that once the objective is clear and the variations of the elements are understood, then the action plans can be created to further reduce the variation between the elements. Step 3 shows that the data should be able to really support the business with identifying the most urgent or impactful issues. And then the next step shows that can help you to really deliver that performance. That then means by continuously measuring each phase, the business can learn and grow to achieve its goals. But when there's so much data, how do you make sense of it all? So we're going to answer that question, and we'd like to bring in Richard and Adam from Watches of Switzerland. So we'd like to welcome both of you if we go to the next slide.
Hi, Delly.
Hi, Richard. Hi, Adam.
Hi, Delly. How are you? Good to see you.
Very well, thank you. Oh, and we have Rosie back. So before we get started, would you mind just introducing yourselves and explain briefly to everybody who Watches of Switzerland are?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Richard Braybrook. I'm the group head of retail operations for the Watches of Switzerland group. I've been with the group for 10 years, and main responsibility is central ops, retail ops, looking after the stores and ensuring we're doing everything we can so that our in-store teams are offering the best experience they can.
Hi, everybody. Hello to all the attendees as well. My name's Adam Moore. I'm head of customer experience here at the Watches of Switzerland group. I've been here nearly 10 years now as well, and I look after all things customer experience, from voice of customer, the mystery shop programs, and then some of the individual touch points in our showrooms as well. By way of brief introduction and to help set the scene a little bit more, the Watches of Switzerland group are a leading luxury watch and jewellery retailer here in the UK and also in the US. In the UK, where Rich and I are based, we have around 160 showrooms comprising of Goldsmiths, Mappin & Webb and Watches of Switzerland. We also have a number of mono-brand boutiques as well. So these are stores that just specialise in one particular watch brand. So examples of this would be our Rolex boutique on Bond Street and a growing number of Tag Heuer boutiques, which we have around the country as well. I think there's perhaps a couple of points which I hope are relevant to make as well. In terms of average transaction value, it's naturally quite high. As you may imagine, we don't see our customers all that often. So on average, only once or twice a year, and on occasions, only once in a lifetime as well. For example, if somebody has had a lifelong ambition to own a particular watch or a particular watch brand, they may fulfill that at some point in their life, at the point of retirement, or to mark a special birthday, for example, and that might be the only opportunity we get to interact with that person. So I think in this context, rightfully, our customers' expectations of us are very high indeed. We must, get every last touch point absolutely spot on because of the nature of what it is we sell and the associated life events that go with it. Obviously, in that brief introduction, I've focused on bricks and mortar retail, but naturally we do have an online offering as well. So that's just a little bit about the Watches of Switzerland group, which I hope helps set the scene for everybody.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you for that, and lovely to have you both with us. I'm sure you've been nodding along to what we've kind of already said so far, and I know that Watches of Switzerland particularly are gathering plenty of data streams. So can you explain how all of that data really helps you to maximise your sales?
Yeah, sure. So I think like any business out there, if it's measurable, we're measuring it. We're picking up as much data as we can from the product teams, looking at product sales and how that's all working. But more relevant to what myself and Adam do is all of the customer metrics that we measure as well. So we have our CSAT survey, we do mystery shopping, clearly a little bit different now than what it was before. We measure footfall with Ipsos, we measure conversion with Ipsos as well. So all the time we're looking at how do we trend that information, how do we look at what's working within the sales process and what isn't working in the sales process, whether the customers are visiting our stores or not. But clearly lots of stuff going on in the background as well, because most of our customers start their journey online and they're researching beforehand as well. So we're measuring all of those different touch points to make sure that each one of them, as with the funnels, is working for us and making sure we're delivering that conversion. So Adam can probably explain more in terms of the actual analytics we do with the customers. So
yeah, specifically on the customer experience side of things, we have fairly traditional at this stage CSAT surveys, so post-visit surveys, always on the lookout for kind of hot topics in terms of what we're doing really well, but importantly trying to preempt what it is that the customer is looking for next and what we can do better, both locally and by brand as well. We measure and track NPS. That's our kind of chosen advocacy metric internally, and that's supported in terms of the customer promise bit. That's supported by quite an extensive mystery shop program as well. Typically our stores are visited every couple of months, and some of the watch brands that we represent also measure us in terms of the certain things that they're looking for within their brand. So we do place quite a considerable emphasis on the voice of customer and the measurement thereof for consistency.
Lots of really interesting information there. So what have you learned from linking that data all together? And I think we've got a couple of slides to link to this.
Yeah, so before we all went into lockdown, we did some work with you guys, and you looked at, given that you were already measuring our conversion and footfall stats, you sent some mystery shoppers out to some of our stores to almost independently have a look at what was happening in our stores. And we'd always had anecdotal feedback, and we'd always been trying to pull the data together ourselves, but it was interesting to get a third-party eyes on what was happening. And what we found was, and the way we were looking at it, was the average mystery shop score on a number of visits to half a dozen stores, and then how that correlated to the conversion rate that we were seeing in those stores at exactly the same time it was happening. Now, one of the things that delighted us was that the average mystery shop scores ranged from 65 to 100, so we know we weren't getting anything seriously wrong. There were no noughts in there. But there was a very big difference between the conversion that we were achieving, depending on how the average mystery shop score came out, which is kind of what you would expect. But this gave us a bit of data to say where was it going wrong and to be able to analyze it. And you can see from the graphic there, I mean, you can't argue that there's a definite correlation between what we were scoring on the mystery shops, and you can see there, 60, I think 67 was the lowest we got, up to 94, 95. And the relevant conversion that we were seeing with those rates as well. But obviously the important bit then was to have a look at what was going wrong, and why was it that some were converting better than others. And you highlighted two key things for us. And I mean, a lot of our sales process is actually quite a soft sales process. We'd like to think it's not really a hard sell inside our stores. So when you do come to our stores, you will get hopefully get a really good experience while you're there. But what we were finding was that it was the sales close, if you like, the hard bit of retail, especially assisted selling, where those guys who were great at closing the sale and put that effort into closing the sale were certainly converting more customers than the ones that were doing more of the softer stuff really well, but not hitting that final close. And yet this all happened just before lockdown kicks in. So to some degree, we have.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there, Rich, that it's probably best they remain nameless, but one of our key watch brands in their mystery shopping feedback said, you know, we can't deny that all of the people that we sent into your stores had a great time, but you're far too nice sometimes. You know, you invest a lot of time and effort into the consultation, and then you don't ask for the sale. And so it was fantastic to have this information on one page. It was something we always used to try and piece together via a bit of an octopus of data streams, trying to pull it all together. But to have that evidence was absolutely fantastic, because it did support what we already suspected and some of the anecdotal feedback we'd received from elsewhere.
Yeah, well, it's great that you've been able to obviously use those data streams to prove what you already thought. But obviously, like you mentioned, then COVID hit. So how has lockdown been for Watches of Switzerland in terms of business performance?
Yeah, sure. So the 23rd of March is a date that we'll all remember. So that was the day that our store teams went in and pulled the shutters down. And so we closed every single store in the UK, as all retailers did. Our online business continued to trade, and so we carried on with our online business throughout lockdown. I think our results came out not that long ago. We'd had a really successful year up to the 23rd of March, and then those 5 weeks that were the remainder of the year, yeah, put a great big spanner in place. So the majority of our colleagues were put on furlough, especially our store colleagues. We did keep a number of store colleagues that weren't furloughed and actually were working during lockdown, so that we could maintain contact and a relationship with some of our clients as well during it. So, but yeah, from the 23rd of March, we spent a lot of our time planning on what we would be doing as and when we came out of lockdown, and almost trying to predict what was going to happen when we came out of lockdown. I'm not sure anybody would have guessed what was going to happen. And so we were ready to go. We kind of knew that the safety of our colleagues and the safety of our customers was going to be absolutely paramount. But we didn't really know how many people were going to turn up. Were people going to go shopping again? So yeah, we were ready. We were ready for June the 1st, I think the day was. We had everybody just ready to go back in, and then Boris decided that we were going to have to wait for a couple more weeks as well, which gave us a bit more time to plan and get ready and look at what we thought might be the things that we would be needing to do. So yeah, on the 15th of June, all of our stores in England certainly reopened. We were quite lucky as well that the American stores had opened just before as well, so we were able to learn from them in terms of what the key themes were. And quite rightly, yeah, that key theme was the safety and the customers feeling safe and secure in your store when they came out shopping was going to be absolutely paramount. So so yeah, so it's a lot of hard work. I think for most of us who did work through lockdown, you feel like you've worked harder than you ever did prior to it. It's in the conditions we were doing. But yeah, we got through, and then yeah, we're now all open. With the exception of a couple of stores. So we've got 2 stores in Heathrow at Terminal 3 and Terminal 4 who aren't open yet because there's no traffic going through Terminal 3 and Terminal 4. So
lovely. Adam, did you have anything to add to that one?
Well, yeah, just to say that naturally we were keener than ever to understand how customers felt on that from the moment that we reopened. In the knowledge that expectations were probably a little bit lower than they ordinarily would have been. It may well have been in a number of cases a person's first visit to a shopping centre or a shopping mall since lockdown. And so we reacted to that by creating a spin-off CSAT survey as an aside from our main one, to just focus in on 2 or 3 very particular areas about safety, security, whether we offered reassurance and that kind of thing. And in that first 4 weeks after our reopening, we got some excellent feedback. We received about 5,000 responses from memory, and only 1% of those customers said that they didn't feel safe and secure within the showroom environment. So it was a good advert for the things that had been put in place. And actually within the context of slightly lower expectations, our NPS actually went up 5% in that first 4 weeks after our reopening. So that was good evidence that the planning and processes that have been put in place were certainly well received.
It's amazing that you were able to keep so on top of it, and it clearly worked. So what else have you done as a business to really try and secure the good performance that you've had from both a staff and customer perspective?
Yeah, so obviously we've followed all the PPE guidance to the absolute letter, and that's been a key driver of everything we've done before we opened up. But we were quite quick to realise that, yeah, the shopping habits were going to change, and based on, like Adam said there, the customers wanting to feel secure in our environment. So we did put capacity limits on every single store in terms of who could get in, which then naturally led to, we had two options. We either we queue people outside and we let them in one at a time, or we look at doing something different, and that's what we've done. So we've introduced what we call our by appointment service now, where a customer can actually make an appointment with us to come and see us. Now, interesting, we had this pre-lockdown, but nobody really used it at all. Why would you? You know, you'd go shopping, you'd get into the store and you'd go and do that. So we introduced that, and straight away it was obvious that there was a massive appetite from customers to want to book an appointment so they could come in, do their shopping as they needed to. And amazingly, yeah, watches and jewelry still remains in very high demand even now. And I think some results that we issued a little while ago said, you know, sales have been up in June and July since we'd reopened, but there is still an appetite to go out there and purchase from us, but they want to do it safely and securely. So yeah, so the by appointment system was launched. You can go online now, book a time point that you like, a little bit like the open table world you would have in the restaurant world, and then the client is then contacted by the store. And lots of different things have been happening. It also means now we get to have a conversation with the customer before they actually come to the store, so we kind of know what they're looking at when they get there, which makes this part of the sales process a lot slicker. You're not meeting them for the first time. We have also introduced the opportunity, if you wanted to as a customer, to have a virtual appointment with us as well. So if you'd like to go on a Zoom call with us and do that, and that's not had quite the same uptake as the by appointment stuff. But what we have been seeing as well, those customers that do want to have a chat with us beforehand, who were never doing it before, we can ascertain what they want really quickly. We can build that relationship up with them before they even get to the store, which is all part of ours. And Adam will tell you that the first 10 minutes of any interaction in our store is not typically about product at all. It's about getting to know the person. So that's been allowing us to do that prior. And as your stats were showing, yeah, we've experienced the same. The footfall is down. We've got stores in London where, you know, the traffic in London is less than half what it was pre-lockdown. But people are shopping with a purpose now, and we're not seeing, you know, we're a nice store to come and have a browse during your lunch hour. We've got some pretty things and some nice watches that people want to have a look at. Those shoppers aren't there at the moment. The recreational shopper hasn't gone back to the high street, or hasn't, certainly. It's starting to return slowly, but not properly. But those customers that are coming in are shopping now with purchase, which makes it a little bit easier to convert. But it means that we have to ensure every last bit of our journey, which now starts at home almost for a lot of customers, is absolutely nailed on. Anything from you, Adam?
No, I would probably just expand on the point you made, which is a really interesting one about the pre-appointment conversation, if you like, and how that's kind of radically changed things. As Richard said, you know, we place a great emphasis on the first 10 minutes shouldn't be about product at all. Keep product out of the conversation altogether. Get to understand the person in front of you. Get to understand their dreams, aspirations, their motivations, their backstory, and then we get to combining that with their perfect item. That bit has already happened now. So not only are shoppers, as Richard said, visiting with more purpose, but we are a lot further down the consultation line at that point as well. And that's been a very interesting shift indeed, I think.
Some really interesting ideas there, so simple as well. But thank you for sharing those. So how do you think you will continue to measure your performance at store level?
I think it's been interesting. I think the last it's 12 weeks now or so since we came out of lockdown, I think we've been measuring things quite differently. Looking at year-on-year comparisons is somewhat meaningless at the moment. So we're doing a lot of measuring in terms of week on week and trying to work out what the customer's doing. So like I said, we use Ipsos. We have footfall counters in a lot of our stores, but not every store. But actually, over recent weeks, we've been making sure that every store's feeding back every single day in terms of what's happening there. So we're certainly seeing more what we're calling walk-in clients now, which is the customers that haven't booked an appointment. The appointment numbers are staying about the same, but more people are heading back to the high street. It'll be interesting to see whether the announcement last night will have any impact on that and whether people go again, because we also saw when the compulsory face masks in stores came in, there seemed to be a great big surge the day before that came in of customers wanting to come and shop, and then it dropped back down again and has grown again. So we're looking at every way we can to measure stuff, but most importantly is looking at what's important to the customer, because that's the thing that we've got to be measuring to make sure that we're delivering what the customer wants. And if you go back a year ago, would we ever have dreamt that we would have safety on our seats? No, we wouldn't have dreamt that's on there. But actually now it is the number one thing. Whether it's still going to be the number one thing in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, who knows, really? I'm sure it's going to be high up there, and I think it's probably changed the way that people are going to shop forever. But yeah, we're looking now, making sure that customer is getting exactly what they want from us and exactly the experience they're getting, but being able to measure it and manage it. So Adam, we've got some new stuff coming, I think.
Yeah, we're launching a kind of a brand new CX program. Don't get me wrong, our current one has stood us in good stead, but the associated reporting site kind of has its limitations, really. So the CX program that we're launching with you guys has got a built-in data and text analytics tool. So I think that's going to give us a far richer and deeper understanding of things at all levels. At this moment in time, we haven't embarked on any mystery shopping as yet, but that will follow a little bit further down the line as well. So yeah, it's exciting times, really. Yeah, and I think to Rich's point, the thing that we mustn't do is kind of put all our eggs in one basket, I think, if I can put it that way. We mustn't leap to conclusions that all customers are going to go online or all customers are going to come flooding back to the high streets. I think the most important thing of all, which we have begun to put in place, is choice. Regardless of the customer's preferred channel, the customer can interact with us in that way if they want to. It will be it WhatsApp video call, Zoom, telephone, face-to-face, online chat, all these things. That's absolutely fine by us, and we must refrain from trying to guide customers in a certain way. 9 months ago, if a customer had said to me, the best thing about being in your showroom was the cleanliness of it, I'd have been gravely disappointed. But of course, that is almost the starting point nowadays. In another 6 months' time, it could be something completely different. But so long as we can keep a close eye on that and keep trying to understand what customers are going to be looking for next, then I think we'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah. And what do you think is going to become important in the future? Do you think you're going to need to adapt how you measure yourselves moving forward?
Absolutely, yeah. As the customers, as we just said there, as the customers' demands are changing, we're going to have to, if we can't measure it, we can't manage it. So understanding that shopping experience, those funnels, have those funnels changed? You know, we talk a lot about the online journey. It starts online. Or the new survey we're looking at, we're trying to distinguish where the customer first came in contact with us as well. So it's interesting, the guys online are able to do great stuff in terms of conversion, and we're looking at where customers leave the buying cycle online. It's not quite so easy to do when the customer's there with you in front of you. So, but I think, we'll just be adapting all the time, everything that we can measure, looking at the relevant measures as well at the time, which hopefully will see us fit for the future. And I think stuff that we're doing now, you know, customer behaviors have changed. It takes a lot to change. I think customers have always been creatures of habit, and the change has always been quite slow. We've seen footfall decline on the high street for years now, but I think this lockdown period, this whole COVID-19 has possibly fundamentally changed the habits of our shoppers, our customers, or retail shoppers and customers. And it's about working out what the right thing is to do going forward. So it's exciting. It's exciting, as well as it being quite a serious time. It's quite exciting for us to see what's coming next. Yeah,
absolutely, and I'm sure everybody probably resonates with that. Well, it's been amazing to hear your comments. Thank you both so much for your input. We really do appreciate you joining us. So if anybody does have any questions for Richard or Adam, then please feel free to post them, because we'll have some questions in a minute. But to really wrap up what we've learned today, we've seen how maximising your footfall and sales in these uncertain times really does require that focus on the whole funnel, making sure that you're measuring all of those areas of the customer journey to really ensure that customers feel safe, and that you're giving them that personal experience that will be memorable to them. So right from reaching out to them before they've even left the house, but most importantly, ensuring that the brand experience they receive while they're in store makes them feel special and valued as well. And this is what's going to draw people to shop with you now and also to bring them back again. So I'm going to hand over to Paul for the final thoughts and to run through any questions that we have.
Thank you, Delhi, and thank you also from me to Richard and on behalf of our audience as well, I'm sure. And I think what's really striking, this program is called the Future of Research, and a conversation we're having here, which is the future of research is changing in front of our eyes because the future of retail is changing in front of our eyes, and that I think is fascinating. So thank you for sharing with us there. We do have some questions, and the first one I think is perhaps a slightly mean one, but Richard, Adam, you painted a picture there of a relatively smooth journey and of a lot of success. If you look back over the last 6 months, were there any missteps, any things that perhaps you looking back with hindsight you would like to have done differently, or would like to have the opportunity to come at from a different direction? Were there any things that didn't go as well as they might have done?
Yeah, hindsight's wonderful. I think we would have loved to have known that the by appointment thing was going to be massively important for us, because we didn't get that in for, I think, maybe 3 or 4 weeks from when we opened. We were working on it furiously in the background to make sure that it works. And again, we've learned a lot from the by appointment system as well, and it's continually improving. We would have loved to have had that absolutely right from the get-go. We all guessed that footfall was going to be down, but it's like now learning those shopper habits. We just wish we'd known that beforehand. But I think it's all evolving so quickly. And that time period where we were all locked in our houses doing that stuff, yeah, I think we were working furiously with not really knowing, we were budgeting during that period as well. And one of the comments made during the budgeting processes was, I can tell you one thing about a budget halfway through lockdown, it's not right, because everything was changing every minute in terms of when we were going to open and what we're going to do. So and it was difficult. I mean, one of the things that we did do during lockdown, and I don't think Adam mentioned it, was that we stayed in touch with our customers. So those colleagues that I said we kept not furloughed, their job during the whole of lockdown was to go through their customer base and just keep in touch with customers. So and not necessarily trying to sell them anything, because we couldn't to some degree, but just making sure that we're keeping in touch and keeping them on the radar for when it did come back, that they would come back to us, and they have, which is the great thing. So yeah, I think there were lots of bumps along the way that we've just had to manage in the way that we could.
Brilliant. And you began to answer this, I think, towards the end of the conversation anyway, but I think one of the things that we're all looking for, whether we're researchers or retailers or manufacturers or whatever, is what of the things that have that have happened over the last 6 months will stick? What in terms of consumer behaviors will stick? What in terms of what will the new normal look like? And I guess are there things that even if things return to some semblance of normality in due course, you will still keep doing because they were great innovations and they had real value? What are the things that, as it were, you'll hold on to learned over the last 6 months?
Well, I think certainly the by personal appointment offering certainly isn't going to go anywhere. Now we've launched it, it will be available forevermore. As Rich said earlier on, we perhaps expected video consultations to take off a little bit quicker than they have done. That's not to say that there's no interest at all, but the infrastructure is now in place, and it will remain that way. So the investment's already been made there for the future. In terms of our in-store experience, one thing that we did have to scale right back was our hospitality offering. So a part of the consultation will always be a seat and a refreshment, and alcohol if you so wish. That will hopefully come back at some point. But I think in the whole concept of, and I was on a similar one of these last week, and the phrase I think was CX hygiene, or hygiene CX or something like that. And the idea of kind of cleanliness being a part of retail theatre is a really kind of interesting thing. So we've got these really cool kind of UV cleaners, and a part of the theatre, if you like, is to clean the watch in front of the customer before they put it on the wrist. And that's all really, really great stuff. And you think, well, hey, why not? Because that's a really nice touch that that may as well remain. Yeah, there is. I'm sure there's other bits and bobs as well, but some of the stuff will, will definitely be here to stay, I'd have thought.
Yeah, and I think there's an element of that in-store experience as well. Customers are saying they do still want to go. They still want to go to store. They don't necessarily want to buy a watch online. They do want to come and have the experience, and it's making sure that experience is absolutely meaningful and drives them back again or gets them to be brand loyal. We don't mind if they shop online or in store, but there's still a large number of customers that want to come and do that. And I guess to some degree the product we sell does mean that you want to go and try it on, you want to go and have a look at it, and you wouldn't necessarily spend a huge amount of money online, but some customers have transitioned to that. I think there's some customers out there now that will never step foot in a store again. They'll carry on shopping online now. But yeah, as that changes, I think all retailers have got to adapt to say, how does this work? And it's sad when you walk down some of the roads in London and around, and there's still some retailers that aren't open, but they're needing that traffic to come back in again. They haven't been in quite the lucky place that we have, that we've had the online experience, or the online channel as well, that's been helping us to get through the lockdown period.
Brilliant. Thank you both of you. We grilled you a lot. I'm going to ask in a second, and those of you who are watching, we'll be closing in a few minutes, so if you do have any final questions, then please do type them in now, and I'll put them to the panel before we finish. But Delhi, obviously, we've heard a lot about what one of our clients is currently doing. What sorts of other changes are we seeing clients making in their measurement programs? What sorts of issues are people thinking about? Are they all the same as we've heard from Watches of Switzerland, or are there other issues we're seeing as well?
Good question. I think generally the issues that these guys have mentioned are probably the ones facing everybody. And I don't think everyone's been as innovative here. They're kind of relying on people to come to them, rather than what these guys have done, they've gone to the customers. Other issues, off the top of my head, I can't actually think of any, other than the whole health and safety aspect is so important, as we saw that if you haven't got that right, people are not going to return. So the basic things of having sanitizer at the door, making sure you have got a restriction on how many people are coming in, them simple things could mean the difference between someone coming back or not.
And that has to be your key, doesn't it? It's the first time somebody comes into your store is going to be absolutely critical. I mean, we're all having new first-time experiences again, and I think how we feel the first time we travel back to the office, how we feel the first time we go into a new retailer, is going to have a big impact on what decisions we make for the next 6 months. Who knows how much longer than that? I think probably we've covered all the questions that we had, so it just remains me to once again thank Richard and Adam for taking the time this afternoon, being very candid, but sharing some really useful stuff. To Delhi and to Rosie, who I know has been having some challenges in the background. To our audience, thank you for joining us. As you know, this is one of a series of sessions. We have another session tomorrow at the same time, and that will be our final session of this week. There are more coming up in October and November. Tomorrow's session, we'll be looking at the topic of semiotics and leveraging cultural intelligence to drive innovation in content and service design. As today, we will have some guest speakers. We're fortunate to have Avanti West Coast Trains and Sega joining us for tomorrow, which promises to be another fascinating session. But for now, thank you again to Rich and Adam. Thank you, Delhi, and thank you to all of you for joining us. Have a good afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you in another of these sessions soon. Thanks very much for your time.